now turn our attention onto property, where Schroder, or rather Schroder European Real Estate Investment Trust, which recently listed on the JSE this morning. Tony Smedley is the head of Continental European Real Estate Investment to tell us more about the decision to list locally and what to expect from the company going forward. Good to have you with us today, Thomas, and thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Fantastic. Perhaps if you, Tony, if you can give us more perspective on the operations of the company, because it does seem to be quite vast. Properties, though, in Western Europe, if I'm not mistaken.
It's Western Europe. It's a new company investing in continental European markets. It's very focused, so it will be on the major cities and major conurbations of continental Europe. So those cities which are benefiting from urbanization, infrastructure changes, demographics. The analogy of big cities getting bigger is a feature globally, and we're seeing that in continental Europe. Importantly, that's where the growth is now returning. Europe has been through a difficult phase, but Western European markets, which are the most mature and liquid environments to invest in, we have begun to see some good performance coming through now, but in very localized areas of those major cities, and it's typically those areas that have constrained supply, limited development pipelines, and because we're local in these markets, we have local teams, we can manage these assets actively.
If we do take a look at some of the spread, you're in offices, you're in retail and industrial, but offices and retail really takes up quite a large chunk of your portfolio. What's the environment like there? And with tenants, is it a tenants market at the moment, or can you dictate the terms to a certain extent?
It's a good question, and I think that balance is shifting, but only in certain parts of the market. We own a couple of assets, take an example in Paris and Berlin, where this year we've seen 10 to 15% rental growth, but that's just in very localized areas.
That's a huge jump.
And that's because of constrained supply. The development pipeline in these markets has been switched off for about 5 years. So if you're in areas where you cannot build any more offices, for example, that gives tenants limited choice. I think the balance of power now is shifting more towards the landlord in certain parts of the market. Our job is to identify those parts of the market and choose the right assets.
You're very clear on the geographic locations that you have assets in at the moment. Are you looking to expand that further to the rest of Europe?
We are very focused on Western Europe, and Germany and France will dominate the landscape because they are the biggest markets and they represent about 75% of the investable universe in institutional investment grade property, which is the sort of assets we'll be buying. So it will be dominated by those two markets, and generally speaking, we're seeing the growth coming through in the bigger Western economies. Certain strategies are focused on Central and Eastern Europe. We are not engaged in those strategies. We're looking at this as a long-term allocation to real estate. And if you focus on the big cities, they've proven to be resilient, good in good times where we're getting rental growth now, along the lines I indicated, and also resilient in long term.
If we do come back to the fundamentals of why you're here, you're listed on our local stock exchange. Why the JSE?
Schroders is very committed to this market. We are building a business here. We've been looking through various channels into how to expand our reach into South Africa. We're a global asset manager, 300 billion pounds of assets under management, and we're expanding our presence. The opportunity to list simultaneously in London and Johannesburg at the same time was an incredible opportunity. We've been advised here by PSG, and they've helped us access investment community who are interested in international real estate, and we've been very impressed by the degree of sophistication of the investors here. They understand the market, they know the sector, they know the real estate markets very well, and that's important for us because we do want to build long-term investor relationships.
Thanks for gracing us with good news, because at times we worry about South Africa and our positioning at the moment. But I take it, despite the listing locally and you being impressed with the level of understanding from investors, that doesn't necessarily mean that you might want to purchase assets here, or am I stating things incorrectly?
We are going to be investing strictly in continental Europe, so there's no intention to begin an investment strategy in South Africa.
Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time today, and all the best going forward. That was Tony Smedley, who is the head of Continental Europe Real Estate Investment.